In a recent live stream, Mark from Mark's Elvis for Everyone channel and I were talking about Do the Clam and what a strange choice of song it was for a single back in 1965. However, one group of people really liked it, and that was the Japanese. And in this video, I'm going to show you just how popular the song was back then and how, in fact, it did actually make sense to release it as a single. The film Girl Happy came out in Japan on March the 20th, which was just 8 days after it had premiered in America. The album of the same name came out on the same day, as did the single Do the Clam. The movie is actually called Florida Banzai in Japanese. Maybe some of you heard the word banzai. It's a little bit like saying 3 cheers in English. So, in effect, 3 cheers for Florida. And in the liner notes to the single, it does actually give some context to the setting of the movie. The insert that came with this single was quite unusual in that it had 6 pages, or folded out to be a 6-page insert, and they've used the artwork from the film. There's all this information on here, but they didn't actually include the lyrics to You'll Be Gone. Anyway, so on the inside here, it does give a little explanation about Florida and what's going on in the film. And it explains that a lot of young men and women will go to Florida in the spring to look for romance, as indeed happens in the film. Now, I don't know if that's still the case. To me, my image of Florida is a place where you go to retire. But if that is still the case, please let me know in the comment section below. So that was the first version of the single, which came out, as I say, on March the 20th, 1965. And just a month later, it was issued in this sleeve here, or with this insert, I should say, which is very similar to the American artwork. However, they've reduced it now to a 4-page insert. There are no photos of the cast and not as much information on the movie, but they do give you the lyrics to You'll Be Gone this time. And it was a popular single. It was available right until the 1970s. This is actually an RCA pressing from the early 70s. Not too many people were doing the Clam in the early 70s, so this is actually a pretty rare single. And it's still got the same 4-page insert that came with that second version. And you can see it's on this RCA orange label. I've shown 3 different copies of the Japanese single, and I've actually found a few different cover versions performed by different Japanese artists from that time, around 1965. And it was a huge hit at the time, so it's probably no surprise that a lot of people wanted to cover it.
Can get your head to spin, boom, 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 on the outside looking in.
After reading the liner notes to this single here, I began to appreciate why Do the Clam was actually chosen as a single from the album. This, as you can see, has a picture of Elvis in the movie Girl Happy, and the red letters here tell you that it is the song Girl Happy, and it's on Victor. However, it's not actually Elvis's version of Girl Happy. It's performed by a group called Scramblers, and I haven't been able to find out much information about them. It seems that they were a group of session musicians, and it's a guitar instrumental version. Guitar groups been really popular at the time, the Ventures and the Astronauts and so on. Anyway, the liner notes to this single attempt to put Do the Clam in its musical context, and they explain that in the previous year, 1964, Bobby Freeman in America had a really big hit with a song called Come On and Swim.
Kinda like the monkey, kinda like the twist. Pretend you're in the water and you go like this. Now baby swim, baby do the swim.
So that song started a craze for this dance, the swim, and the writer of the liner notes for this single says that Do the Clam is in the same subgenre. It's part of the swim subgenre, and he says it's a classic of its kind. He also lists two other examples, the first one being Chicken of the Sea by the Go-Go's.
Everybody calls me Chicken of the Sea. I said Chicken of the Sea.
And the second one, The Backward Swan by Duane Eddy. Another question that came up in the live stream I did with Mark was, how did the Japanese translate the song title, Do the Clam, into Japanese? I wasn't able to give a complete answer in the live stream, but I'll do so now. In white letters here, it says Suimide iko. So that's the Japanese translation, and it basically means let's swim. But it doesn't mean let's swim as in let's go and swim in the sea. It means let's do this dance, the swim. And at the bottom of the insert, where you can see the number 65 here, it says, let's swim in 65, 65 being 1965. So what they actually did was, rather than translate it as Do the Clam, they bundled the song in with the other swim songs from that period and translated it as Let's Swim. I've just got one more record to show you from the period. That is this EP with the song Girl Happy, performed by this group of young lads here who are known as Jannies. They do sing on this, and the lyrics appear on the back cover. However, the only English lyrics they use are Girl Happy, yes I am, girl happy, can't you see? And the Japanese lyrics are not translations of the English lyrics, they are new lyrics. This one is also on Victor, black label. They used blue labels for non-Japanese artists for these EPs. And the original writers of the song, Pomus and Mead, are not even credited anywhere on the record or the sleeve. The only people who are credited are the people who wrote the lyrics and the people who wrote the arrangement for the song. Do the Clam featured on many Japanese greatest hits compilations over the years, beginning with Golden Story, Volume 1 in 1965, going right up to Gold 30, released in the 1970s. Another thing to keep in mind with Do the Clam is that it was actually recorded in June 1964, although it didn't get released as a single until early 1965. So perhaps if RCA had taken the initiative and released it at the height of the swim craze, it could have gone on to be an all-time Elvis classic instead of one of his more maligned hit singles. What do you think? I've always had a soft spot for Do the Clam, to be honest, and it makes a little bit more sense now. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching. See you next time. Cheers.
Ain't you glad that you found